Today's episode is sponsored by the John Naka Memorial Exhibit, formerly the Non-Pukai Exhibit. This show's going down August 16th and 17th, 2025 at the George Dozaki Gallery in Los Angeles. It's the only juried show in Southern California. Anybody can submit trees. The goal is to have a small but high quality show with free entry for the public. You can find out more information at nakamemorialexhibit.com. Once again, that's nakamemorialexhibit.com. I am absolutely looking forward to this show, and I hope to see you there.
The baby trees. Bonsai. 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 Close enough.
The Black Pondo Podcast.
Bonsai, bonsai,
Bonsai.
bonsai,
Bonsai.
bonsai.
Yeah.
The Black Pondo Podcast.
Well, cheers.
All right, yeah, cheers. Thanks for coming.
Thanks. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. Try this. It's good.
Yeah, you just want to make sure you get like a little bit of a gulp.
Okay.
You don't want too little. Get a good amount. It's on the colder side because it's in my fridge there.
Yeah.
But as it warms up, it'll start to, you'll taste more as it opens up.
So are you supposed to drink scotch and whiskey cold or room temp?
No, normal.
Is there a debate on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Most of the time, you're not really supposed to have it cold.
Okay.
But I find that I kind of enjoy it just a little cold. It's not like a refrigerator in the sense that like a refrigerator gets like 40 or something.
Yeah.
I think this is like 50 degrees or something.
Oh.
Yeah, and it does warm up pretty quick if you kind of nurse it a little bit.
Yeah. So are you are a fan of having whiskey slightly cold?
Yeah, to start.
Okay.
Kenny actually got me on that. And they actually last a little bit longer in the bottle because it's cold because the problem is I'll have it out here and it's left to the temperature of the house. And I don't turn the AC on if I'm not here, so it could get hot. So at least it's more stable. Mm-hmm. And I mean, if it's cheap alcohol or something, that's different, right? This is not the cheapest thing to drink.
Yeah.
So I should probably try to take care of it a little bit.
Well, thank you so much for the scotch, and thank you so much for agreeing to podcast with me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
really appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I was thinking about just kind of where you've come from, and we were talking a little bit about both living with our parents. I think when I first met you, we were both living with our parents.
Yeah, that's right. I had a workshop at my parents' house. Yeah, and you came to that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then.
Just to be clear, we don't live with our parents anymore.
Good point. Yes. Yeah. And I think it's good. I think it's a very Asian thing.
Yeah.
To live with your parents after. For me, it was after college, but I think it's a great way to save up.
Yeah.
But it's also important to leave the nest.
Yeah, at some point, right? Doing your own thing. That concept is always very interesting, right? Because my parents wanted me to stay there. It's not like what you would think normally in the sense of, okay, we got this, man child that won't leave the house kind of guy. So, I have a great relationship with my parents, so it's not like we dislike each other. So it worked out, and that was inevitably the problem, right? You start getting a little too comfortable. It's a little too easy. You relax, and okay, it's time to move on, right?
Yeah,
and get your life started.
Yes. But yeah, I just you have come a very long way. I mean, I feel like we both have, which is a very good thing.
Yeah.
But walking around your garden is just so cool. And every time I come here, the trees get better, the workshop gets better, everything improves. And I've just seen your trees mature and the quality of the trees get better and better.
Thank you.
And I think that you are just so highly regarded in the bonsai community. and do such incredible work. And I know that your time is very, very valuable. So I really appreciate you saying that you would podcast with me today.
Oh, yeah. You're welcome. You're welcome. Anything for you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, you are a busy man. You working like, how often are you working in the year, would you say?
Yeah, it's interesting doing bonsai full time and owning your own business, right? Just you end up working a lot more than your typical 9 to 5. I generally these days I work just about every day, I would say, for the most part. It doesn't mean I'm working with clients every day, though I do work with a number of clients. If it's not working with clients, there's stuff that needs to be done in the garden, among general personal stuff that needs to be done. But a lot of times, each day there's always something I have to do, right? I always have to water the trees or make sure they do get watered, so I always have to check on them. So in a way, I work all the time, and my days off really comes down to small little pockets here and there, like a couple of hours where I'm not working, or okay, today I just got to check on some stuff, but I'll just kind of mull around a little bit. That's kind of the extent so far. Thinking about it, good or bad, that's how it is right now. Right? That's a good thing or a bad thing. My feeling is that if I want the trees to progress and develop trees at a very high level, it does require a lot of my attention. So that might not be the best work-life kind of thing, but I don't really regret it. I do enjoy it, so I guess in a way it's not work. So at least I have that. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate coming up here. I think in the last time we sat down and chatted on a podcast, you were telling me that someone told you that you get to work with people on their fun days. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right. That is very true and such a cool thing that you get to give your clients and the people that you work with a fun day. Yeah. And today was very fun for me. I had a blast. Good. And so I appreciate the many fun days that we've had. And I think that's such a cool aspect of being a bonsai professional. Yeah. It was another Japanese apprentice that told me that. And I thought that was incredibly insightful when he said that. I was like, you got to really kind of appreciate what I get to do. With people. Apprentice was that? It was Uchi at Aichi-En. Oh. I think you've met him before. He wears sunglasses? Yeah, he wore sunglasses because he had kind of sort of like a light epilepsy issue, and so he had to wear sunglasses, which is tough in Japan because they really frown upon that. Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, because if you wear sunglasses, you're kind of looked at as like a gangster or a mafia or kind of a cool guy. And when you're an apprentice, you're definitely you're not supposed to convey any message like that. So Daiju-en would always have to tell people, it's a medical condition. That's why he's wearing sunglasses, because that's a big no-no. Yeah. But surprisingly, a lot of people in Japan don't wear sunglasses. Yeah, okay. Yeah, even though it's like, well, it's probably good for your eyes if you wear sunglasses, but they just don't. That's just a cultural thing. But yeah, Uchi, yeah. I think he follow him on Instagram still or Facebook. Yeah, he's doing bonsai in Japan. Didn't he marry a bonsai professional as well? Yeah, it was, I can't remember her name, but she had, or where she studied, but she had studied with a Japanese bonsai professional. I'm not sure how they met. I never asked him how they met. But yeah, they're married. I think they have children or at least one child, last I heard. Yeah, I don't know if he got more. A bonsai nursery and everything? Yeah, putting together a bonsai nursery. So that's so cool. Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, that's pretty nice. Just find a bonsai wife. Absolutely. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I mean, I feel like you are working all the time and you don't take enough days off. I think you should definitely take some vacations every once in a while. But I also know that I feel like clients just want to work with you all the time. And you're basically like fighting off clients these days.
which is pretty crazy. Good thing, but we were talking about there's just not enough bonsai professionals.
Yeah. It's interesting because something I've realized recently is that I mean the clients that I have, their collections are getting bigger or better, and they require more of my time. So say I had a number of clients and I worked with them once a month, let's just say, and now they all need 2 days a month. And so that suddenly changes, how much time I have. And I came to a realization that if I have a number of, say clients that need a lot of my time, it ends up being that I actually can't have that many clients. Or at least one bonsai professional just can't quite have that many people to work with. Which is kind of unfortunate because I mean, I want to work with a lot of different people because there's so many people who want to learn, but the realization I'm having is that I can't connect with everybody, and I don't know how to figure that out. Is the tough part because there's so many people that can learn it, make this this art form bigger. If not, people who are interested in becoming a professional themselves and I can't help them with that, right? So yeah, definitely a bonsai professional shortage. I think we can have a lot more in just California alone, and we would all have plenty of work.
Yeah,
it's not like we have to compete with each other. There's a lot of work to go around, and so I hope, I mean, people are listening. I hope if they ever think about becoming a bonsai professional, they should do it. I mean, there's work for you if you're good at it, if you're likable. I mean, you're going to do well. Right?
Yeah, it does seem like there's a need for quality bonsai education and professionals, especially in the United States and California. I feel like closer to where I live, which is on the central coast of California, there's like nobody. And then in Southern California, which just has a massive population, there's really not that many bonsai professionals. I think there was. There was, or they're all just much older now and they're not looking for that much work. And there isn't quite, I mean, there are some new people like, we were talking about Julian. Shout out to Julian.
Yeah, shout out to Julian.
Love Julian. He's awesome.
Doing his thing. But yeah, I mean, how many people's in LA? Like 13 million?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Insane.
Yeah, Julian can't help them all either, right? So definitely room there for sure. Yeah. But I do know that there's people that are apprenticing in Japan now. That's in the Southern California. It's going to be a few years before they get back, but at least there's things happening. Mm-hmm. We can definitely use more, but at least it's moving in that direction. So that's good.
And you're also helping out in that regard in having your own apprentice.
Yes, yeah. That's right. Yeah, I have my current apprentice, his name is Travis. And he lives in Auburn. And he's been an apprentice for about a year now. I think he's going to stay for another 3 years or so. But yeah, he's coming around, learning a lot, and he wants to be a bonsai professional. Keep your ears out for him in the future. I'm telling him everything I know, so it should be good.
What a fantastic opportunity for him. Yes. Very cool. Yeah, and congrats again. I don't know if I've said this to you, but was just thinking today as well. Congrats to you in terms of all the Pacific Bonsai Expo awards that your customers have won.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was fun and amazing.
Yeah. I feel like your work really is just on the highest level and looked so good at the Pacific Bonsai Expo. And I can just pick out your trees
thanks.
because of the quality of them.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I do have to thank my clients for that, right? They're all my clients' trees. I didn't put any trees in, but I mean, I'm so grateful for them because, they hire me, they let me do what I do now, and their trees won. And I mean, I can't complain. If it wasn't for them, really, I wouldn't exist. So I gotta give my clients a lot of credit. That's really where it should go to. That allows me to exist. So, and I'm honored that they would have me work on their trees and get them ready for the show and things like that. Not to say that I'm the only one that works on the trees. They do work on it too, to a certain degree, right? Especially on the taking care of it. It's not like they're at my house all the time. So they still do need to properly water the tree, make sure nothing weird happens, spray the tree, all the horticultural management stuff that would, it doesn't matter how good I style the tree, let's say. If the tree didn't get watered, I mean, it's gone, right? So I still give them a lot of credit because they still have to take care of the tree and get it to this level. So
Absolutely. Yeah. One question I wanted to ask you about the PBE, I don't think I've asked you this before, is what do you think about the judging? And I'm curious, if it were up to you, would you do the members' choice type judging? I know that we have a history of that through both being in the BIB club.
Yeah.
But I was curious, and I don't know if you've given a lot of thought to it, or if it's something that I'm putting you on the spot here.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, I mean, and I'm okay. I'll tell you exactly how I feel about it or what I think about it, and of course, it's just my opinion, right? So, I mean, when the first PB came around, and it was a member's choice, I wasn't 100% sold on that. Because everybody's skill level is different, right? So how is it possible that they would pick the best tree? Let's say,
Yeah.
I mean, I just me judging trees in the past and doing this professionally, I found that it can be very challenging. And then to have, say, somebody that is not a professional or hasn't seen that many trees, how can we assume that they would reasonably pick the best trees? Now, I know Jonas did some test runs, and he found that it seems like the best trees still won with members' choice. But that was like my initial kind of reaction to it. As the first show kind of passed, and then we came around the second show, some of the things I started thinking about was, well, I mean, overall, it's like they picked good trees the first round, so it's not like it was totally all bad or anything like that. So I was like, okay, well, that seemed reasonable. And at the end of the day, it's Jonas and Eric's show, and if that's the judging they want, I mean, what am I to question that? It's their show, right? Nor should I ever be that vocal about, I don't agree with that, right? I mean, it's not my place. It's foolish to think that it is. But interesting enough, because a number of people have asked me that also, and this is the part that's probably going to get me in a little bit of trouble, but I'll say it. I mean, it's just what I think, is that I thought about it and I said, if we did get professionals to judge the show instead of the people participating, who would these professionals be? Are they Japanese trained professionals? Are they actually Japanese professionals? Are they professionals that were that came around, within the U.S.? And so that in itself is this huge range. Also, like, I mean, anybody can do bonsai professionally. Somebody can wake up and say, you know what, I'm going to teach bonsai today, and now they're considered a professional. Or they start a YouTube channel and they talk about some trees, and now they're a bonsai professional, right? You have that same person judging, and you have somebody that's, say, went and did a full apprenticeship in Japan, and are they equal? So I came to the realization that, well, sometimes picking so-called professional judges doesn't yield what you would think as the best trees winning either, because they have all their biases. And the interesting thing, I found that more professionals probably have more bias than your average Joe bonsai enthusiast, in a way, because they've just been able to speak their mind about it because they were the authority for so long. So I think they have a stronger sense of what they think is right and wrong. So their biases seem to be stronger, actually. So, and I've seen shows where professionals pick the winning tree, and I didn't always agree. Not to say that I'm the one that's right, but there was some questionable stuff. And this is the part that would get me in trouble, is that I don't know if picking professionals to pick winning trees is actually any better than picking amateurs, having amateurs pick the trees to win, at least currently in the U.S.
Yeah.
And I'm not pointing any particular person out or any professional out, but that's just my sense right now. It's tough because there's a lot of professionals out there that are, say, not as qualified to pick better trees, and but that's just how it is. Everybody's at different levels, and that's just how I feel about it right now.
Yeah. Well, it's tough. I mean, you can't please everybody.
You can't please everybody. Yeah, that's true.
That's do it one way, someone's mad. You do it the other way.
And I came to accept that, right? Putting my clients' trees in the show, it's you would hope that your clients would win. We put a lot of effort into the tree, but we always, me and my clients, we always went in knowing that, hey, things happen, right? Not all judging is going to be perfect. We might not agree with some trees that win or some trees that don't win, but that's just the name of the game. So you just got to accept it for what it is.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we are. I mean, I've been fortunate that my clients did win some prizes, and maybe that in a way skews how I'm looking at it now, right?
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, the question about which judges would you pick, that's an interesting one. Almost think, well, first off, I like a decent number of judges.
That would make sense. Yeah, having more than like two,
than two,
would
more than
be
three.
helpful. Then you get kind of a
broader perspective.
Yeah, and maybe that's why having, say, like the members' choice at the PBE works out, right? Is that you have so many judges that it just kind of evens itself out, right?
I do think that's a good thing, for sure.
Yeah.
I think if you went with professional judges, I would want to see like a minimum of 5, but ideally even more.
Yeah.
I think that would be good.
Yeah.
Maybe you could have the members vote on who the judges should be.
Oh, well, that's interesting. Yeah.
And I think it would be awesome if you had like at least 7 judges.
Yeah.
Or even more than that.
Yeah. I like that. I understand that, having judges, professional judges, could be cost prohibitive for the PBE because everybody wants to get paid, right?
Yeah.
and especially professional. So I can see why that maybe is a factor, right? Or at least if there's no urgency or sense like somehow the judging was not fair, why step it up and make the show that much more costly? I know that they've spent a great deal of money putting on that show, so I totally get it if say they're like, 7 judges, that's tough. But I do agree with you, having more definitely would help out in balancing
the bias.
Yeah, exactly. It would kind of knock out any biases that are a little too great if it came down to like 3 people, right?
Yes.
And it's interesting, those biases are impressive in a way, right? I mean, I've had bonsai professionals say that they hate one particular tree. And I was really surprised because I mean, you're a bonsai person and you hate a tree. It seems so odd that one would say that. But they said it without like it was normal to say that. And that made me a little like, I don't know about this person,
Interesting.
But I hear things like that and you're just, okay, well, that's pretty biased.
Yeah.
Well, that tree is definitely not going to win just because you hate that species of tree, or that cultivar of tree.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, that's tough. What are you going to do about that, I guess?
Yeah. That is tough.
Yeah.
I guess with the members' choice, what I do really like is that I do think that it forces the people that are showing and exhibiting trees to really learn and improve. And I think from an educational aspect, it seems to make a lot of sense. I do like that aspect.
Yeah, I am a fan of that too.
But I almost feel like we could have both. Maybe we could do members' choice awards as well as professional judging.
Okay, yeah.
Or some combination of the two. But I don't know. I was just curious. I don't think I ever asked you that. So
Okay.
yeah, one thing, the topic that I really wanted to talk about with you today was junipers.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think one of your clients won the, what was it, large juniper category at the PV?
Yeah, it was a large conifer category, yeah. And it was a Kishu juniper grafted on a California juniper trunk.
Got it. Yeah, that tree was absolutely stunning in my opinion.
Thank you.
I really loved the work on it, and the level of refinement was outstanding.
Thank you.
And overall composition was just very, very nice. And I guess one thing that kind of I was thinking about is the trunk. While it's a good trunk, I don't think it's necessarily like the best trunk that I've seen. It's definitely a good trunk. It's Yamadori collected California juniper.
Yeah.
But I think that the grafting the tree was a very good move. Yeah. And if you didn't graft that tree, I just don't think it could have been what it was.
Yeah, and a number of people have asked me because we showed that tree at a local show in Sacramento recently, and an old client of mine had took me aside and was asking me questions about the tree, especially on how full the canopy was and all the individual pads that it had. And one of the things that I told her was that, like you said, the trunk is a collected trunk, and I think there's 2 lifelines and there's dead wood, but there isn't any kind of crazy twists or any kind of crazy old gins that are sticking out of it. You can tell it's collected, but it isn't like just fantastic twisted thing, right? So one of the reasons why it was styled the way it is with a much fuller canopy with a lot of individual pads is that the trunk by itself was not strong enough to just kind of just be the showstopper by itself, right? We had to add a full canopy with a lot of pads to help supplement it in a way so that the whole package looked really, I mean, at the end of the day, when you look at that tree, it's just a very pleasant tree to look at. Like, even though, say, it doesn't have the best trunk or all the crazy twists that we would want in a juniper, overall, it was just like a pleasant tree to look at. Nobody can really look at it and say, I just don't like it. It was just nice to look at. And there's something to be said about that, that it didn't have to be so fancy. But I think the foliage definitely helped it, and the fullness of it. And again, the individual pads just kind of gave you more to look at. Yeah. Right? So for example, and I was talking to her and I said, the old client, that if the trunk had a lot more flair to it, a lot of twists and gin sticking out, I probably would have developed the tree in a way where the canopy was actually smaller, or it was a little bit more sparse in the sense that there was not just pad everywhere, but there were bits more spaced apart from each other, so that the focus is back on that interesting trunk, and the foliage is there just to show you that, hey, you know what, this tree is alive. It's not dead. Yeah. Right? So the foliage becomes more secondary, and the trunk is the showstopper. But in this case, since the trunk wasn't the showstopper, we needed to add the foliage on top. And it was kind of specific for this tree to kind of bring it all together and make it fortunately, a winning tree at the show. Right? Yeah, that's so fascinating, and I love to hear your thought process there. Because, yeah, I guess I typically think, okay, the value of a juniper is all in the trunk. Yeah, and for the most part, that really is true. I think for bonsai in itself, most of bonsai is that the main value is the trunk, how interesting it is trunk, because that's the oldest part of the tree. And everything else is kind of secondary to that, and the foliage is like the youngest end point right there. Mm-hmm. It's still important, but it's not quite as important as the trunk, because you can change that 3-month-old foliage very easily. You can't change that 100-year-old trunk or 1,000-year-old trunk if it's a collected tree. So yeah, for the most part, the trunk is key for sure. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Can we talk a little bit more, go a bit deeper in terms of what a good juniper looks like?
I guess starting with the trunk, like where do you find value in a juniper trunk?
What I've been telling people, and it's interesting if you're looking at it from a quality perspective in, say, junipers, especially in relation to, let's just say your goal is you want a fantastic juniper and you want to put it in a show like the Pacific Bonsai Expo and you want to win, right? That's your goal. You want to have a fantastic tree. Everybody loves it and it wins a prize. Or at least maybe it's, let's say, not the prize, but just it's a fantastic tree. Everybody's amazed, right? And that's your goal, which is a great goal to have. Specific to junipers itself, because there's so many junipers out there. The competition is pretty tough.
Yeah.
Right. So because there's so many that's being collected, so many that's just so interesting to look at, you just can't collect a juniper that has like a straight trunk and think that people are going to like it as much because there's so many other ones out there. So it just gets diluted because, if somebody brought in a decent beach, right? We were talking about some beaches earlier, just a decent beach doesn't even have to be that great. The fact that there is almost like no beaches around, people are going to look at this beach and be like, this is fantastic because it's so hard to find or develop or grow. Nobody's growing them from seed. People can't even get the seed, right? Kind of thing. You can't take cuttings from it because that's not a thing for beach. Beaches don't take as cuttings. So the competition is high for junipers. So I do tell some of my clients now, or even new clients, or just people who are interested in bonsai, are interested in junipers, and I tell them it is very much a challenge to compete in that category, and that what we're looking for in junipers for the most part is old lifelines, old dead wood, a lot of movement. Those are kind of the key things. And when you think that there's some movement in the tree, you gotta like times it by 10, because there are ones like that being collected. And once someone styles that out, really refine it and then show it, just all the okay twist stuff. Even if you found a twist, which is hard to find, it's like that's not good enough anymore. That's always in that, okay, that's in the okay category. It's not in this top tier category. And unfortunately, it's harder to get into that game because the really good trunks that are being collected are very expensive. It doesn't mean that they're not worth it, but the price is high. Maybe I shouldn't say it's expensive. It's just they cost more. And so now we're talking about, well, if I don't buy a Rocky Mountain juniper with an awesome trunk that's 20 grand, now you can't compete. You bought the 10 grand one, right? And you did the best that you can, but someone bought the 20 grand one, assuming that 20 grand meant it was better, and they did the best they could. It's hard to beat that. So it becomes a financial issue too. Not always just a skill, because you can say have the same professional work on both trees, and one inevitably is still better than the others just because of the quality of the trunk. And we see that in Japan because they've been doing that for a long time. So your average juniper is not really, it's just kind of average. And the ones that have a lot of twists, the harder to find ones, are just very expensive. Yeah, because there's just so many. Right. So it's hard to compete.
Yeah. So in my mind, I always think that the top three things that I'm looking for in a juniper trunk are twist, curve, and then the interplay of the lifeline and the deadwood together.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if you just have like a really cool twist and curve in a juniper, but it's all dead, it's not as cool as if you have deadwood right next to a live vein, or
and they're all
even better.
That's a good point.
Live veins.
Yeah. And for the most part, that is true, and I agree with that. Having said that, I have seen some junipers that were fairly straight in Japan that has won like Kokufu, which is their biggest show, and it wasn't a twisted trunk or anything like that.
Are you talking needle juniper?
No, not needle juniper. It was a Kishu, Toigawa, most likely. It was probably a Toigawa. And it won Kokufu. And so that it kind of tells you that, and I think for the most part, what you're saying is correct. If you set your sights and those are kind of your three goals, you're not going to have a problem. But there are those few trees out there that doesn't quite fit the convention of what we think is quality. But I would say the last part you're talking about, the interplay of the deadwood and the live, and in this case, it wasn't twisted, but just the way it looked, it was a tall tree, so maybe it had kind of a towering stature to it. And in this particular case, also, the tree was incredibly old as a bonsai. And so I think that had a factor in why it won, because it wasn't, okay, I have a tree, it's twisted and crazy looking, which is great, but it wasn't a bonsai, right? It was like that in nature. So we get some credit. Okay, we found it, we brought it into, and we turned it into a bonsai form. But that's what it had, right? So this tree that won Kokufu, for example, it wasn't just that. It was the fact that it was a bonsai for like 100 years or something, and it looked like it. So in a way, it represented bonsai so much better than any collected tree that was then styled. And so, okay, you're talking, it was in the ground, 5 years later, it's in a bonsai show, and that's supposed to be considered great, and it wins a prize. But there's a little bit more to that. That's more technical side of it. But when we're talking about really old bonsai, and in the U.S., we're a little bit, we're inexperienced on that because we're still young at it. We haven't done it that long, that this age of bonsai, the tree being old as a bonsai, starts becoming more and more important. And it's a very nuanced thing, because nobody wants to see this 1,000-year-old trunk and 5-year-old branches.
Yeah.
Like, what is this, right? We're talking a 1,000-year-old tree, a 700-year-old main branch, a 500-year-old secondary branch, and so forth, all the way to, this is the 20-year-old branch, 10, all the way to the 1-year-old tip that you see that's green. Okay.
It's interesting. I talked to Seth Nelson. I had him on the podcast, who studied at the same place as you.
Yeah.
And he said that, I remember this quote very vividly. I think I had it. I listened to it a few times. He just said that Mr. Tanaka, above all things, valued true age in trees, which I thought was cool. And so you're saying you basically, you have an old trunk, and then you get time, you get credit for time as the tree growing in the wild in the native environment, and then you also get credit for time of the tree growing in a bonsai container. Mm-hmm. And usually they refer to that as mochikomi. Is that what you've heard it as?
Well, I can't really comment on that. I don't know a lot of the Japanese terms, so that I don't really know. I don't know. What is it? What's that all about?
I think it's just age within a pot, like a tree.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Like it's been bonsai for a long time.
Yeah. And it's interesting, right? And that was one of the things that I thought about, just my time in Japan and how valuable that was. A big part of it was being around trees that have been bonsai for a very long time. I mean, there isn't, I don't know if there's any. I don't think there's any bonsai in the U.S. that's been a bonsai for 100 years, let's say, for example. Probably not. I think bonsai probably started in the 30s, 40s here in the U.S., probably 40s.
I definitely don't know historic. Okay. What about like that white pine at the national? There's and I don't know when it came over. But there's a one.
Yeah. I think that came over in the after World War II.
Okay.
Yeah, it might have been in the 50s or something like that. Yeah. Yeah, it kind of looks like a big mushroom.
Yeah.
And some people say it looks like a mushroom cloud.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so that was after World War II, hence the whole mushroom cloud reference, right? But yeah, I don't know of any tree that's been a bonsai. Now, I mean, they could have been a bonsai for a long time, then they got brought to U.S., But were there any trees that were created in the U.S. that's been a bonsai for 100 years? I don't think so. But regardless if it's 100 or 80 or 60 years, I mean, I think we have some that are made 50, 60 for sure. So again, we're inexperienced in that sense of bonsai, seeing, okay, what does a really old bonsai look like, as a bonsai, not just as a tree, and what is a young bonsai? Again, you get a tree that's a couple thousand years old in the forest, you collected it, it's a young bonsai. It's never 1,000, 2,000 really years old. I mean, the trunk is for sure. But as a bonsai, it doesn't have that same sense. And the tough thing is that it does require time to pass. I mean, we do things to make it look maybe older than it really is, but time definitely has a role in it, and you can't make up that time. You can't fake that time. And so and I think that not everybody in Japan thinks that way, but I think a good number of the Japanese professionals in Japan understand that concept or appreciate it more. And in a way, when I went to Japan, I was looking at these trees, and Mr. Tanaka would be like, "Yeah, my grandfather started it," or "This ramification took 80 years." And I was like, the first thing I thought was like, 80 years. Oh my God, that's a long time, right? How am I ever going to do this? But in a way, it kind of took the pressure off in having to develop a tree to look really good in a way, in the sense that, okay, well, let's get real about it, is if I start the tree now, I'm not going to be around 80 years. So all I can really do is play a role in the development of this tree. You don't have to see the end. You play your part in it, and someone else will take over after that. So now you don't. So in a way, I kind of felt like, well, there was a little less pressure, right? I do the best that I can, knowing that somebody will take it to the next level and so forth. And I can be happy that I did my part in all of that, because it's unrealistic to think that I can be around for that whole journey. I mean, some people they're born and they don't make it to 80. And you're talking about, okay, somehow I'm supposed to get this tree to be ramified with 80-year-old branches, or what would take 80 years to develop. It's just not realistic. And so in Japan, we're moving more in that direction now. People are starting to understand that they're playing a part in the overall life of this tree. But a lot of times when people are new, they get a sense of, I want to develop this tree and I want to kind of see it through to the end. But once they figure out how much time bonsai takes, or high quality bonsai, and quality of bonsai is getting higher and higher every day. So it's becoming more unrealistic to think that you'll see the end of it before you're gone, right? So you look at that and you're like, okay, all I can do is be that caretaker for this period of time. And you have to accept that. Yeah, there's going to be some trees that were brought up, and you get to see the kind of the final showing of it, and that's great. But you play your role in moving other trees to the next person and so forth. But yeah, this concept of this old, long period of time in developed bonsai, definitely, yeah, it just makes you look at it very differently. And there's less of a rush. And know that, yeah, this tree will be good. I might not be able to see it, but it will be good, as long as you put a good effort in it. And that's just how it is,
Yeah. What a cool and interesting concept that we're, just a small portion of the care within a bonsai tree, or we should be.
Yeah, and I think more people should be. I think we'd be a little, maybe more at ease and be happy about it. And look at the bigger picture, right? I mean, we do tend to be very short-sighted about things. 2 years is ready to show, right? And I was like, bro, it's like 20 plus, right?
Yeah.
But that's a hard pill to swallow, because I mean, what takes that long to develop? Most people don't think in that scale, right?
Mm-hmm. How long, going back to the juniper in the PBE that won the award, the one that we've been talking about, the California with Kishu, how long do you think that took from, putting the first grafts on that tree?
I have a photo of it back in 2012. That tree, the graft had taken in 2012. So I'm assuming it was grafted in 2011 or 2010, around there. And so, I was there when the top portion that was grafted also got cut off and separated into a second tree. And I was given the trunk to repot. And it belonged to my current client now. It belonged to the same client then too. I just work with him now. And so I distinctly remember repotting it, which is very interesting thinking about it because, I didn't think it's just a couple whips stuck to a trunk. And you're like, oh, okay, well, we'll see where this goes, right? So let's say the beginning of the development, not including the graft, started in 2012, and I repotted it at that time. And we showed it at the PB in October 24. Interestingly enough, a couple of things about it is that the tree, I would say at the PBE, it was probably at the peak. Everything filled in just the way we wanted. Everything was big enough. The tree was tall enough, wide enough, dense enough, all that stuff. So we did get lucky that it hit it just at the right spot. A side note is that, generally the tree kind of looked like that. Maybe it wasn't exactly, everything was all perfect. 3 years prior, it was already fairly full, and we had shown it before at a smaller show. So it's not like it somehow just became that just in 24. It's been like that since 21 or so.
Gotcha.
And we showed it. Yeah, I distinctly remember when the Baba Club, they started their show again after that first year of COVID and everything was locked down. We were kind of getting back into the show, and we showed that tree. And it was looking really good. It wasn't as full as, say, it wasn't as wide or as fully developed, but it looked good. I think we all would have been happy to have that tree. Here's the side note. That tree hasn't had wire on it since 2020.
Wow.
So there hasn't been a single piece of wire on that tree for the last 5 years or so. It was something like that.
Dang, okay.
And I was the last person that put wire on that tree, and it was to finish the bottom pad.
Okay.
But that had to have been in 18 to lay out the basic outline to get it to finish. Right?
And so just scissor work.
It was all, it's a lot of directional pruning, which is normal. That's what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to wire a tree all the time, every day, every year, every other year. That's not how it works. You wire it in the beginning, and this is for both deciduous trees and conifers. You wire it at the beginning. You do heavy wiring because you're doing a lot of manipulation. You're getting kind of the bigger structure set. And then after that, you do tend to use a lot of directional pruning so that, one, you're not spending so much time wiring because that just sucks up so much time, especially if you can prune it and get the same result. Sometimes you have to wire. There might be a few here and there, so I'm not saying that you shouldn't wire. There's times. And ideally, you want to get the tree to a refined mode where you can mostly do directional pruning, maybe every now and then. When we're talking maybe every 5 years, you do a wiring just to kind of clean things up. Maybe some branches have grown up a little too much. You got to bring them down. But good directional pruning won't allow a branch to go up that much. So you can really keep that at bay if you're on point. Assuming that the tree's growing healthy. Sometimes, you get little weird blips in health, and then you have to let something grow up and get stronger. And of course, then you have to bend it down. But it was very interesting. The tree grew really well. And of course, then, the care on how to grow the tree is very important. You can't grow a weak tree because weak tree, the branches grow, they get leggy, they flop down. And now you need wire to just hold it up. And then you take the wire off and it flops back down. So it was kind of cool seeing that firsthand on this particular tree. That we're like, we haven't really needed to wire it. We were able to grow it healthy enough. And it took long enough just to prune the thing. It takes me like 1 day to cut the tree back and clean it up. And I do that once a year on that tree. So at least it's only once a year, but it takes me 7 hours, right? Imagine if I had to wire the tree all the time.
Yeah.
I could do it, but then my clients would be the ones paying for it. And it's ridiculous to have to wire a finished tree so many times. That's not how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Got it. So, actually, could we take a quick restroom break?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
it.
Thank you so much. All right, we're back.
All right.
So, I definitely want to ask you about the pros and cons of grafting trees. However,
Okay.
before we do that, I had a few follow-up questions that I was thinking about.
Okay.
So, first question for you. Talking about quality of junipers. Do you think in the current state that, let's say you have a budget of $20K, can you get a better juniper in Japan or in the US today?
If we're talking about just the trunk, and we're talking about, are we talking about like the highest quality trunk, and which country can we get the highest quality trunk, as opposed to say like a finished tree, right? That's what you mean? What you say? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in Japan you can get a tree that's all finished, and it'll be way more than $20K, and it'll look really great. We don't have that same tree here, but material-wise, we do. So if we're talking about trunks, I would say if you had $20K to spend buying and you're going to spend time developing the tree, and that was part of the deal, you can probably find a better trunk in the U.S. or potentially in other countries where they collect still. In Japan, collecting is a little bit limited. How they treat their collected trees and their deadwood is a little different than how we treat them too. They tend to smooth some things out and not have, say, as many of those little cavities or these little fins that a lot of our collected trees have. And to tell the truth, I'm not 100% sure if it's all just that they cleaned it up, or is it that their junipers there don't seem to have that characteristic, which almost looks like dragon scale in a way. And it's just like, wow, how does that even form? It's incredible.
It seems like to me in Japan there's different approaches. And say, like, for example, there's a few trees that Kimura did where it's kind of like it's meant to look almost to me like more like wood sculpture.
Yeah, it's
as
all
opposed
smoothed
to,
out.
as opposed to a natural tree growing in the wild.
That's a good point.
Whereas here we like the natural tree.
We kind of leave it as is, right? We'll clean it up a little bit, clean the lifeline, but not mess with the deadwood too much and preserve it for what it is. Yeah, I agree with that. I think we tend to do that more.
Yeah. So you're saying you can get a better trunk in the United States, but could you get a better finished tree in Japan, generally speaking?
For $20,000?
Yeah.
For $20,000, the junipers that you're getting, because there were so many junipers there and there's so many high-level junipers, $20,000 probably won't buy you a very good juniper. So, I mean, you would have to spend like $80,000, $100,000 plus $1,000 for those incredible big finished junipers, padded out. I mean, it's a lot of money, right? And like we were talking about earlier about now money becomes a factor. You want to talk about not being able to play the game. Okay, you're telling me I go to Japan, I want a bonsai collection, I want a really good juniper, and I have to start at $100,000?
Yeah.
Right? To even compete? It's like
it's a different game.
It's a different game. It's just a different level of the game, right? It doesn't mean we'll have to play at that level, but it is a level. Right, and it's up to you if you want to play at that level, and for some people it's just cost prohibitive. You just don't have $100,000 to spend on one tree, right? That's one tree, and that's not a collection of trees. Yeah. That's one tree, right? And that's assuming you get it for $100,000, and then not for more. That's why the nice thing in the U.S. you can have that tree if you're willing to spend a bit of money on a quality trunk, and then build the tree out from there. I mean, if it was somebody new, they're going to have a hard time building the tree, so they seek professional help and hopefully the professional help will give them that kind of tree that they were looking for. Right?
Yeah, well, I think it's really exciting, and I completely agree with you. I think you can get a better tree in the U.S. right now in terms of with our native conifers, and that's really exciting to me. Like that fires me up. That gets me really excited because we have the ability to do that. And if you can't afford it yet in the U.S., maybe you can get a permit and figure out how to collect it.
There is still the possibility of being able to collect it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. So it's not impossible yet.
It's not impossible.
Yeah, but it may be at some point. So if you want to do it, definitely get on it, right? Yeah. I feel that with junipers, in the juniper category, that is probably, if we were to compete with the quality of bonsai in Japan, that's probably the fastest way for us to get to that level in Japan because we have the material. We just have to work on the branches and foliage portion of it. It's unlike a black pine, right? A black pine in Japan, people have started from seed like 100 years ago. And no matter how, if I started a seed today and I spent 100 years developing it to make the trunk look like 100 years old, well, that tree in Japan is now 200. Like you can't catch that. You can't catch up to it. They'll always be ahead because of that time. But because junipers is not about you personally growing it in the sense that nobody grows the juniper trunk, we collect it, and it has that age already. It allows us to jump ahead and compete at that level because of the trees just growing naturally on their own. Now, we still have to get it to look like old bonsai. I mean, that part we still have to work on. But that's a bit easier than, say, growing a black pine trunk that has a lot of bark on it
Now,
to compete.
In your opinion, can a field-grown or container-grown juniper ever match the quality of Yamadori?
I think in some cases, yes, because I've seen some examples of it. And it's close. I mean, generally, the examples that I've seen, you can still kind of tell it was field-grown, or maybe it was just an old juniper that was growing in somebody's yard, and it got collected, and the things that happened to it made it look kind of more like a collected tree out in the wild. Because it had things lopped off of it. Somebody hit it with a car. Who knows what happened, right? So it experiences some things like that too. So they can grow fairly wild. I mean, generally you can kind of tell if it was a collected tree in the wild versus, say, it was in somebody's yard. But I have seen some examples where they'll look really good, and can they compete? I can say in small cases, probably a little bit more on the underdog side, that there are a few out there, a few specimen pieces that can compete and can probably win just because the composition is just so much better versus just a collected tree and the composition, say, is not good, right? Because we can still all collect straight trunks and it's all boring, right? Or like you're saying, the interplay of the lifeline and the deadwood is very boring. Well, you don't get that much credit if you collect that. That's just not going to cut it. And you get a real twisted, it's field-grown, twisted, with interesting movements and old lifelines. Yeah, that tree's going to win, of course. Can the best collected tree in someone's yard beat the best collected tree out in the wild? Probably not. It'd be very interesting if you found something that can. Yeah. But probably unrealistic. It's probably not going to, I mean, the stuff out in nature is just so twisted. I mean, something in somebody's yard, 100 years old, maybe someone planted something in the late 1800s or early 1900s, and something out in the forest has been there for 2,000 years. I mean, that's a lot more winters for sure. Yeah, and exposed to such harsher elements. Yeah, what was the weather like 2,000 years ago, right? Yeah. It could have been just totally buried. Who knows what happened at those years? I have no idea, but they've seen a lot, so they get more beat up for sure. Yeah. It seems like to me that the field-grown junipers are best in small sizes. Like they I don't know, they're just fun little trees, and it's like that it's not Yamadori, but it's cool, man-made, created tree with lots of twist and movement. It's a different thing. It's got a different feel. It's a different animal compared to true Yamadori. Yeah, and generally it's hard to find really small Yamadoris, right? Generally they're big. Though I would say that one time when I was at I think it was Taikon 10. It was the fall show in Kyoto. And somebody had set up a shohin display where it was all junipers. Like the 5 trees. Was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? They were all junipers. And it was kind of more of a fun thing. But the interesting thing about it is all the junipers were sections off of a collected tree. So they root grafted, then foliage grafted. So they had these little trees with some crazy deadwood on it that you would never see somebody like field grow. Okay, so it made them stand out. And they were actually just pieces of the collected tree. So there was example, and that was the only time I actually saw that. I didn't, and these were shohin-ish type sizes. Now, I've not gone to the shohin. I've not done a lot with the shohin in general in Japan. But I didn't see, that was the only time I saw that. And I was like, so there was a lot of effort put into that to really create that kind of collection. So it is possible, but it requires human intervention, right? You don't find that little tree in the forest. If you find a little one, it's always like a skinny trunk or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are a lot of good field-grown junipers, twisted ones that are very high level and are in, hundreds of thousands of dollars of shohin display. And I remember Daijuen that Mr. Toru Suzuki was showing me a kokofu when I was an apprentice there. He was pointing at one shohin display that is, I think it was his customer or maybe another professional's customer or something. He was looking at that, he was telling me, 300,000. This shohin display, 300,000. This over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
And I was like, wow, that's a lot of money for 5 trees, right? But it was very high level. And those junipers can be part of that. Now, because so many are made, there's definitely a lot of them that are like plain Jane. Yeah, that's okay. I remember I bought one years ago for a couple of $100. I did all this work. And I asked Mr. Tanaka, okay, how much do you think it's worth now? And he was like, about $200. And I was like, I thought I did a pretty good job. He was like, no, you did a good job. It's just there's so many of these trees that people just don't pay more than that sometimes because they know what it is. Okay, maybe if it's a little different, it stands out, and that's how you get more money for them, but most of them are about the same. And so they get capped off, right? The tree, no matter how much hard work you put into it, the trunk is the same trunk. There's thousands of that particular same movement.
Supply and demand.
It's supply and demand, yeah. And it's just around $200.
Yeah. That's funny. Here they're a lot more rare.
They're more rare here.
Yeah.
Nobody's growing a lot of them. I mean, they were growing thousands and thousands of them in Japan. And so, and that's why when I bought it, it was like $250 or something.
Yeah.
And I spent all the time repotting it. So, the interesting thing is I did eventually sell it. I changed the front, wired it, repotted it, all this stuff. Changed the front. I think we did get $400. I think at a professional auction. So it wasn't retail. Probably could have got more retail, but it was okay. So I made $150. I had the tree for 2 years. I repotted it, wired it, and I made $150. And I didn't have to pay to keep the tree anywhere, right? Right, Mr. Tanaka paid for that, and I didn't have to pay for the water and fertilizer. I just used it. That's a hard business.
If it was legal to import into the U.S., you probably could have got $3,000 for it.
Oh yeah, that same tree, but like $3,000 here, because it's so hard to find. Nobody's growing, and the people who did grow them, like Jim Gremmel, grew a number of them back in the days, and that's why he got a lot of money for them. Junipers don't grow thick fast, and you get the out of the ordinary ones where the trunk is maybe 2.5, 3 inches wide, and it's real twisty, and it's only 12 inches tall, all padded out. I mean, you can get a lot of money because there's no such thing.
Yeah.
Like you said, supply and demand. So
Totally.
in Japan, they're like, do you have any more of these? I'll take 5,
Yeah.
Over here, we're like, oh my God, it's so great.
Yeah, most definitely.
And that's how it goes.
One other thing I wanted to pick your brain about and talk with you about is deadwood texture. And I guess specifically on Yamadori, it's something that I think about a lot. I feel like, first off, there's some specific features on certain types of our native Yamadori where we could almost name that characteristic, and it's a reoccurring thing. Like in Japan, they have ibojin on needle junipers, which is like a warty, spiky gin type thing. Sometimes I see a similar thing on Sierra juniper. Or another characteristic I see with Sierra juniper sometimes is like almost like these little scales, like dragon scales. And I think that's a really desirable characteristic. Hard to find on a tree that you actually collect. And so I think just in general, texture of the deadwood and a natural texture is really important, and something that should make the juniper more valuable if it's a really good quality.
I mean, the texture, yeah, if you have things like that, definitely it has more value. It's more interesting. You can't duplicate it. People have tried, and some people are there are some people out there that can successfully duplicate some form of it. But the true texturing that looks like kind of the dragon scale stuff, I don't know anybody that can actually replicate that. Because it looks like it was built from just a lot of winters and a lot of pressure on that wood.
Yeah.
Because it's always on an area where it's bending. Right? So it's like those little fins pop out from the bend over time, right? So how do you carve that without... and make it look like that? Now, the only issue is this. Is like going back to... like in Japan, where they make it look maybe more sculptural than natural, right? The tough thing is that now we have to be very picky about the trees we collect here, because you can collect a tree that has an area that looks like dragon scale, but say the rest of the trunk doesn't have it. And so there's a bit of an inconsistency in your overall styling of the tree that makes you focus on the dragon scale and not on anything else. And it doesn't tend to flow together. And though that scale part is highly desirable, and I'm not saying, well, you should just throw the tree away, but there is a little bit of an inconsistency there. Whereas if you went through and the whole trunk was smooth, for example, and consistent, it's more pleasant to look at. So now we're talking about, okay, I want the dragon scale, for example, but you have to find one that has not just the dragon scale that you want, but you have to be able to look at the tree and say, I can style it where this is the main feature and there's no other parts that make it look like two separate trees. Dragon scale, maybe some movement there, and then the canopy around that. And you're not dealing with an area that's so much younger looking, which is not consistent. Okay. So now you can't just say, well, it has dragon scale, that's the one I'm collecting. It still has to work out as bonsai. You know, how is the flow of everything? Does it look like they all go together? As opposed to an incredibly old section next to an incredibly young section.
Yeah.
Like this deadwood just formed last year, but it happened to be attached to something that had died 1,000 years ago. Okay. Yeah, it's natural. It's still natural, right? But it doesn't show, say, this more even, consistent. It got older every day, older. There seems to be a jump, and now we're kind of gapped in kind of the story, right?
Interesting. You're making me think about the juniper I have in the workshop, and you're making me want to root graft it.
Oh, right.
So with that tree that I have in the workshop right now, the area that it was collected in, the bottom half was sheltered by rock.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so the top was getting beat up by the wind that was coming over this ridge on the cliff. But then the bottom section was basically like there was just a bunch of granite. And so that top part's all crazy. It's got the scaly,
smoother.
The below smoother. Yeah.
Now, I would say that for your particular tree, it's a little bit more reasonable to go with the overall tree. Is that even though there's some inconsistency, the area on the bottom is a little bit more of the upright area, and the area that has a lot of that scaling is an area where it's folded on itself.
Yeah.
So that sudden fold, at least it'll tell you, okay, it formed that way because it's this dramatic fold. And this area that's a little bit more sheltered, well, it makes sense that it's not as crazy. So at least there's some explanation when you look at it. It's not just, well, here's some crazy stuff and here's the other crazy stuff, but it doesn't have the scaling here and the scaling there kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's tricky. It's always kind of a case-by-case thing where sometimes it is okay and then sometimes it's very not okay.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's always nice that we can root graft.
Yeah.
And divide, just like going back to the PBE tree that was one tree, and then they divide it into two, right?
Yeah. So the top half got root grafts put on it. And so the top part was a California. I can't remember if they then grafted the top. I'm trying to think. Yes. Yeah. I think the top was grafted with Itoigawa because I sold that tree to a different client.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't do the grafting part, but I got the tree later. And so my client had it, and then he sold it to another one of my clients.
Cool.
Yeah. So it was grafted, the top.
Nice. All right. So really wanted to talk to you about the pros and cons of grafting Yamadori.
Okay.
And I know this is kind of a long one, but I think that you have a very interesting and thoughtful opinion on it, and you've had a lot of experience with grafting our native Yamadori.
Yeah.
And so I would love to get your feedback on the pros and cons.
So pros and cons, and I'll be as I'll lay it all out. Yeah, first of all, what I've been doing is generally I've been grafting every Yamadori tree I have. Generally, that is the case. Actually, that is the case. I have one tree right now that it's on its own foliage, a Western Juniper, but I'm thinking of grafting it too. And we talked about it earlier, and then it's the same thing, right? I just didn't do it back when I first got the tree. And I have that tree for over 10 years now. And it was actually in the first PBE, and I was proud of how it looked and stuff like that. Nice thing about Western foliage is that it is a little tighter. But even it, in a way, succumbed to what we're going to talk about, right? Before I talk about grafting trees, and I am a firm believer in grafting junipers, is that it's only because I'm looking for a very specific look and a specific feel in the tree. I'm not saying that everybody should do it, or everybody is a terrible person if they don't, right? If you like Rocky Mountain foliage, you like California foliage, Sierras, Western, then go for it. Okay, I'm not going to stop you, nor should you be stopped if you like that foliage. I mean, a lot of people like Sierra foliage because it's blue. I mean, I don't blame them at all.
Nice color.
Yeah, when I graft a Sierra Juniper, I'm always like, man, I wish I could graft something that was blue. Yeah. That'd be really cool. And I'm losing out on that color, right? So it's not like I just, whatever, and graft it, right? I like it too, right? So, but it's more for reasons of just the overall future of the tree, overall feel of it as a bonsai. So a lot of trees I grafted, a lot of collected trees I'll graft for a lot of reasons. Some of the simple reasons are, if I graft Itoigawa juniper or Kishu juniper on a collected tree, the foliage is just smaller in general, right? It's not any different than somebody looking at a maple tree in Canada and saying, I love that tree and the leaf is the size of a dinner plate. And somebody says, well, if you turn that into bonsai, isn't the leaves kind of big? And you say, I don't care, I loved it, right? It's like, okay, so there's a proportion issue, right? So a lot of our native junipers, like California, not to say they're all this way, but a lot of it is that their foliage is very big. They're a little bit coarser, they're bigger, they're looser. And so proportionate-wise, if we try to bring them down into bonsai size, the foliage tends to look big. So that's not particular to junipers. That's with any tree that has a big leaf, for example. And we say, well, I can't make that leaf smaller, and then we end up not using it for bonsai because the proportions aren't ideal or not what we're looking for. So that's reasonable, right? So that's one reason I'll graft is that you have this tree. It's small to even larger trees. When you have Kishu or you have Itoigawa foliage, the foliage looks smaller, the tree looks bigger. And so the tree has it's more impactful, right? You see this great tree and there isn't this kind of disproportionate foliage that's just kind of there, and it makes the tree look small. It's just like when you have a tiny ponderosa pine that you collect and the needles are 6 inches long. Okay, great, you did a good job and you got it to 3 inches long. It's still big for a small tree, and it always looks disproportionately top heavy. And there's nothing you can do about that, right? Because getting them to 3 inches, or even if you're successfully, and I know some people who've gotten to 2 inches, that's still big. The tree has to be pretty big to hold a 2-inch needle and have it look somewhat proportionate looking. So if anything, it's for the proportion, then that's kind of more of a superficial reason. So that's one of the reasons why I'll graft them, is that they just are more proportionate. The other reason, some of the other reasons, or maybe more important reasons, or more in-depth reasons, are that when I develop a bonsai, and I'm thinking about, say, junipers, but any bonsai, one of the main things I look for is age. Is this tree old? Can I make it look older? What are the different forms of age, right? Is it physical age? Is it age of when it was just out in nature? Is it age as a bonsai? I'm looking for the whole all package, right? If it is a collected tree, okay, we see that old age in nature, but I want to see it that it's an old bonsai also. So to have it look like old bonsai, you have to have branch structures that look old. Not just the branch that came with the tree when you collected it, but the branches that you grow on the tree after that. They have to look old. And so let's say you dig the tree out of the mountains, you take it home, it grows new foliage. There's a sudden jump in how the foliage looks. It went from really old and then suddenly really new because you grew so much so quickly in a short period of time. We're developing branches, the tree's healthier than it's ever been because you're watering it every day, fertilizing it. In the mountains is like, okay, maybe get some water, no food. So it grows very short, right? Okay, so those increments are small. But when we get them, they get wider. So what I'm trying to do is that when you have a collected tree and then you start working the branches, and when the foliage is big and coarse, that means every time you work on the tree and the tree expands because you're building structure on the tree. Assuming you're building structure on the tree, every time you work on it, it expands slightly. That's the nature of bonsai. It never stays the same shape because we're never cutting back to the same spot. We're always keeping some new and we're building structure. The issue with foliage that's really big is that it grows so fast because what growth you do get is so coarse and big that the tree suddenly becomes wider really quickly. Now you might say, okay, well, we can just cut it back. Well, you have to be careful, right? If you have Rocky Mountain junipers, California, Sierras, if you cut them back too hard, they go juvenile and then they can get weak. So you have to be careful how you cut it back. Which also means if you get a certain amount of growth, you're limited in how much you can cut back. So you have to keep a certain amount of growth. And let's say you're forced to keep 1.5 inches. And now your tree is 1.5 inches bigger on one side, which is 1.5 inches bigger on the other side too. Let's just say that's the numbers we're working about, or maybe it's 1 inch. If it's 1 inch, it's still a good amount, because in 5 years, that's 5 inches bigger. And the tree's now really wide. And that's assuming you only get 1 inch a year. If you're feeding the tree and you get another inch, now it's 2 inches every year. In 5 years, 10 inches wider on both sides, 20 inches total. That tree is nothing like you planned it, right? So one of the issues with using the original foliage is that they tend to be coarse, they tend to be leggier, longer. Because they're heavier and we're trying to grow the tree slower, the branches tend to grow weaker and the branch starts to flop, which means you have to put wire to hold the branch up. It can't even hold itself up. And once it flops, it's very difficult. I don't even know if I've ever seen an example of this, that someone's able to grow a floppy branch back to strength that it can hold itself up. Usually you have to cut it off and grow a new branch, or get a backbud to come out and then cut the floppy branch off. Okay, well, that's not productive if you're trying to add branches to your tree and you're eliminating them now. So because the tree is coarse and you're limited in how you can cut it back, you can try to grow the tree slower, but then it grows floppy branches. Now it forces you to have to grow the tree a little stronger, but then that means the tree grows more and gets wider faster, even though you're doing proper cuts. And what happens is that in a very short period of time, the tree gets leggy. Okay. So say you spend 1 year, 2 years, 3 or 4 years, and you got your tree to the shape that you want and you're happy, and you spent 5 years. Any years after that, the tree now looks leggy. Or let's say you're able to get that 6th year, and then the 7th year, it's leggy.
Define leggy.
Leggy as in the tree's wider than you want, right? It was smaller than what you really want. You grew it, you developed the structure, you have your show tree. And then next year it's 2 inches wider on each side or an inch wider on each side.
So past the desired silhouette that you're looking for.
Yeah. And you always have interior branches. If you did have foliage, they fall off over time. You lose a few branches here and there. The branches get too weak, they die. And the tree does what it naturally wants to do, which is get bigger. And you are able to only hold it for so long, right? Because any harder hold causes it to go juvenile, okay? Or you lose a branch because it got so weak. Or it gets floppy because you cut it too hard and it got weak, right? And it can't grow back. Okay, so that means you have a tree, you have the natural foliage, and let's say you design the tree into a shape that you want. It took you 5 years, 6 years, okay, which we've seen, okay? And the problem is that you never see the tree again on year 7, 8, or 9, because now it's too leggy. And so what do you have to do? You have to restyle the tree. You have to either cut the branch back, get something to backbud so you can get your original form again. But what's the likelihood of getting every branch you have on the tree to backbud? All it takes is 99% of the branches to give you a backbud, and your main branch doesn't backbud, and now you're stuck, right? Because the main branch is leggy and you're able to shorten everything else. So what do people do? Okay, they cut off the main branch, they use a different main branch. Now, hopefully you have a lot of branches to choose from. But if you don't, now you're trying to chase back a style, or you're trying to get back the style that you originally had when you put it in the show and you were really happy, and you don't have the branches that can actually give you that. And now you're chasing that. And I've seen this a million times. Trees that look good for the show after 5 years of work or so, and after that, it never quite looked as good as it ever did. Because not every branch backbudded. While you're waiting for the branch to finally backbud, other branches have grown out, okay? Or now they're not backbudding in the place that you need. And so it always has to be this redesign. And now you're wiring the tree all the time. So you're dealing with a tree that you get what you want, but it's only for a short period of time. You have to then try to chase it back, which is very difficult. Or branches are leggy, and now you have to wire to try to compress it. Okay, so now you're wiring it a bunch of times, and you might be able to get some kind of shape back, and say you spend another 5 years getting that shape. So what happens on year 6 again? It's the same thing.
Cycle repeats.
The cycle repeats. The tree gets a little leggy, not everything backbuds, okay? Did you have to cut another main branch off, right? Because it wouldn't backbud, now it's too leggy. Do you have to wire the tree again and really compress it, and then you get those squiggly line designs, which falls apart immediately once you take the wire off, okay? And so now you're getting into the cycle where it's not that you just have to always be chasing that design that you wanted, that you lost because the tree got leggy, and it's not all the extra work you have to do in cutting the tree back, wiring it. And if you paid somebody to do it, then you're paying somebody to do it. That all aside is not the worst part. The worst part is that your tree will always look like it's 5 years old from where you collected it. It never looks older as a bonsai because you have never kept the branch for longer than 5 years. And we're talking about like pad structure type branches. Okay, maybe you grew a main branch out and you're able to use that over and over. I'm not talking about that. But generally, all the pads, they look relatively young because you're replacing the branches all the time because they did get leggy. Now, one of the nice things about working with Kishu or Toigawa is that the foliage is small. They have to get very weak before the foliage hangs. If they get leggy, there's still an issue with them getting leggy, so it's not like it's all just great if you have a Toigawa or Kishu. There are ways of getting them leggy too. But if you can grow them healthy, you can cut them much harder without them going juvenile. The growth you get is so much shorter that you can cut and say only keep half an inch or a quarter of an inch, which means your tree is only expanding a quarter of an inch every time you work on it, or even less, versus an inch and a half or 2 inches, which means you can maintain the shape of your tree. If, say, you finish the styling of your tree, you can maintain that shape for longer periods of time. So instead of a 5-year turnaround, now it becomes a 15-year turnaround or a 20-year turnaround. Now, the name of the game on refined trees is that you've developed everything you wanted and you can maintain that silhouette for as long as you can. That means you're growing the tree at just the right pace so that you can enjoy the tree for 20 years and not have to wire it again or do very minimal wiring, and you're doing the normal pruning. And you can show that tree, oh, there's a show tomorrow? Oh, I can show this. It's kind of ready to go all the time. It's not in the, it's kind of in the down cycle year where I have to replace all the branches. Okay, and for those folks that are listening out there, if you've had a collected tree, you know what I'm talking about. We've all been there, wiring them over and over and not quite getting it. We kind of get it, and then it's like, but it's leggy, and now we have to replace the branch. Okay. You got to go in knowing that if you want to use the natural foliage, you're going to fall into that trap. The tree's going to grow out of shape so fast that you only get to enjoy when it looked good, when it had a bunch of wire on it, for that period, that 6 months after it got styled. And it never got better after that, or it did get a little bit better, and then before you know it's leggy, you have to rebuild it. Or you have to chop a whole branch off and replace it, which didn't make your tree look older. It makes your tree look younger if you're replacing branches. So that's that's one of the main reasons why I graft Kishu or Toegawa, is that I can maintain the shape of the tree significantly longer. It's less work in the long run, and the tree looks denser and fuller, which Rocky Mountain, California, and Sierra generally can't give you that density if you're looking for that density. If you're looking for that age in the branches, smaller foliage tree is going to be able to give you, because we can control the growth so much easier than big foliage. It's not like I just love Itoigawa or Kishu just because it's a Japanese variety. Okay, it has characteristics that allow me to maintain the tree at the shape that I want for long periods of time, so I don't have to wire the tree every 5 years or chase the design that I had. I have it still. And so the example of the juniper that was in the PB, that tree has looked like that for the last 5 to 6 years, and it still looks like that today. It's a little bit wider, but it's only a little bit wider. Nobody's looking and saying, it's leggy. Okay. And the goal is to have it look like that for at least another 5 years, 10 years, if we're successful in maintaining that. There's a lot of techniques we can use where you can have the tree, even with the native foliage, where, there's a couple spots where, I can reduce this area. I can make it look like what it looked like 4 years ago when it was an inch smaller. And now you gain an extra 4 years, right, of maintaining that shape. Because ideally, you have set the structure well, which you can do much easier on a Kishu than on a California juniper or Sierra, where the foliage is just bigger. I mean, what kind of structure can you really set up? You're not going to get any kind of... And when I say density in a tree, I mean not just a bunch of foliage. I mean a lot of branches. Like, how many branches can you fit in a specific space on a California?
Not that many.
Not that many, right? Because the foliage is just big. That's all it is. This is the reality of it, right? Versus Kishu, where in that same area, you can fit a ton more branches. Which means if you have to replace something, you have a lot more options. You don't just have 3 to pick from. And maybe you have 10 now. Well, that makes your life a lot easier, right? So thinking about it in the long run, thinking of bonsai in longer periods, is that it may be more costly. You have to have patience to do the grafting and the building. And you can't have kind of instant gratification. But the payoff at the end is so much greater. Because there is a point where you see the payoff and you say, that's why I worked so hard and I'm enjoying this for a long time. Or you can go the route of using native foliage. The payoff is a couple of years later and you spend the rest of your life chasing that original form again. Which one's better? Okay. Now, new people don't understand that because they don't know the process, right? But experienced people, there are people out there right now that love Sierra foliage and love California. They know exactly what I'm talking about. We've all been there, okay? And so if you know this is what's going to happen, you better love that material. You better love that foliage. Again, I'm not stopping anybody from using that foliage, but you have to know what you're getting into and if that's what you want, okay? Now, if you get into doing grafting Kishu or Toigawa, that's not all just like great either. You still have to maintain the health of the tree. There's sun requirements. Yeah, California junipers you can put in the full sun. Even refined ones. You can't just put a Kishu in the full sun as 100 degrees and think it's going to be just all happy. So maybe you have to protect it. Spider mites love Kishu, and they'll go after a Toigawa. It's not like Californians won't get them. I've only seen spider mites on a California juniper one time. I've never seen it on a Sierra. I've seen it on my Western on one or two occasions. I'm sure all junipers get spider mites in one form, but if you have a garden and it's got all the junipers, the Kishu is getting hit first, right? Totally. Right. All the other ones are like second choice, right? Right. So, and maybe that's why I don't see a lot of them in the ones in the ungrafted trees. Is because they always go after the Kishu. So you have your spider mite control. You have to be on top of that and watch for it, understand how to control spider mites, because it will get you and it will make your tree leggy. And so you can still run into legginess issues if you have a real tight foliage like Kishu. Other things is getting Kishu to be very tight requires ideal care. So, but that's with any tree really. That's the same if you have a California. It has to be healthy. If it's not healthy, it gets even leggier faster, and the foliage can't hold itself up. Yeah, overall, I would say that's probably the biggest con. And I guess if you consider the time it takes to do it, the delayed gratification is, say, a con to some folks, then okay, yeah, that's a con. But the rewards at the end really is all worth it. So, and it takes time, right? So if you think you're going to do it, it's best to just get on it. And I know a lot of folks out there has a hard time grafting, or it's discouraging when you graft and they don't take. I mean, I've grafted a bunch of trees, they don't all take. And it's just as discouraging today as it was, 10 years ago when I started doing it, when I got back from Japan or so. But you just got to do it. And and one of my clients even said, what it really comes down to, yeah, you know what, this year we're going to graft. They don't all take. You do it again next year. Eventually, they all take, right? You just got to, okay, I'm going to do it one. Ideally, hopefully, it shouldn't be more than 2 years. Ideally, if everything took the first year, that would be great. Unlikely, right? So you throw in the second year to finish it up. And maybe there's a third just because there's a tree that's tough for some reason. But it will all get grafted. And then you start moving down that road to developing a tree that I think everybody would be happier about.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing about this concept, and when I talk to people about grafting trees and why I do it, is that in the long run you get a more quality tree, less stressful. You're not chasing that tree all the time. You don't have to keep wiring it all the time. You see progress in your tree, especially if you can keep it healthy.
You also get good structure. I feel like I've seen some bonsai professionals, what they'll do is they'll spaghetti the branches.
Yeah. No, I would say that, I think good structure is with any kind of juniper, in the sense that if you grafted a Kishu or a Toigawa onto a California juniper, for example, you can still grow the structure in a very poor form.
For sure.
You grow a branch out and you use the very long branch instead of cutting it, getting a division closer. So you spaghetti that. I've still seen that. And that's more of just a cutting and understanding how to develop structure kind of thing. But a Kishu will allow you to develop structure easier. It gives you choices in that. At least you can say, well, I should have cut there, but I didn't because I wanted all of this. On a California, sometimes foliage, you're like, I have to cut here because there is no other place to cut because the branch is leggy. I have to use this. So you can't even make the mistake of not cutting enough. You have no choice. This is what you got. Yeah. Right? So I've seen that, but it is easier to correct if you do catch it. Also, if, say, one of my clients did that and used a little too much branch, and I said, well, you should just cut it back to these divisions here. Usually they're still there to cut. So you can recover. So that's another pro in a way. The interesting thing about it is that most of the people I talk to about this concept, they're really convinced by two things. The main thing is that they're not chasing that tree anymore, that tree that they wanted. And they work at it, they get the tree that they wanted, they maintain it, and they can keep that good-looking tree longer. The second part is when I tell them they don't have to wire the tree so many times. So if you're not wiring the tree, chasing that style all the time, and you're like, you mean I don't have to buy a bunch of copper wire and I don't have to spend all day wiring a tree? Well, that's a great deal, right? And then take it from me, I sell copper wire. And I tell people you're not supposed to wire that much. I mean, it would be my benefit to just say, yeah, keep using California and just wire every 5 years. Yes, please. Or every 2 years. That's probably more realistic. People have to wire it every 2 or 3 years, not just every 5. Okay? So you know I'm not BSing you because I sell the very thing you need to wire a tree all the time. Wiring is not something you're supposed to do all the time. And that's something people have to kind of get out of because they're so used to wiring branches over and over. I remember I had one client where I think it was a lady, her whole tree was wired. And I said, well, we should take this wire off, main branches, secondary branches, and so forth, all wired. And then she said, okay, should I rewire the main branch? Rewire these branches? I was like, why would you rewire the branches you just took the wire off? Unless you didn't put them in the place that you want. Is that what you want to move them again? Right? And she was like, no, usually when I work with a professional, I take the wire off and I rewire the whole tree and then they reset it, right? And I was like, well, if you wired a branch and you get it to the place that you want, you're never really supposed to wire that branch again. You wire the next branches after that. That's what we're doing, right? And when you get into refinement mode and you're only keeping a 1/4 inch, there's no wiring. That's all directional pruning at that point, okay? Maybe you do directional pruning, 1/4 inch here, 1/4 inch there. You get now it's 1/2 inch, another 1/4 inch. And maybe over so many years, it's now 2 inches long and maybe it's a little off. And you wire that 5-year-old branch, not that 1-year-old branch. That's when you wire. Okay. And so, yeah, I mean, overall proportions, more options in developing the trees, older branch structures, because you can fit 20 years in, let's say, in 8 inches. You can make a branch look like it's 20 years old in an 8-inch space as opposed to 3. Like with our native foliage. That's what makes the tree look older. That's why I do it. And it's kind of funny, when I was in a convention one time and I talked to a Japanese professional, he was an American, I believe, but he was a professional in Southern California, and we were talking about junipers. And he was showing me some pictures because he was a big he grafted all the Californias down there with, I think it was Kishu, or maybe Torgawa both. And I looked at his photos and I was like, all grafted? He's like, oh, yeah. And I was like, no, California. He's like, don't waste your time. He told me this like a long time ago. And I was like, well, come on. Maybe there's some good in it. Now I understand what he was trying to tell me. It's like, in his way, he was essentially telling me, just don't waste your time messing with the natural foliage. You're going to figure it out at some point. And I've told this to a number of people, and I found this to be true, too. Everybody's always going to be a little resistant to it at first. Some people jump on board. Some people are like, well, I kind of want to see where it goes. I get it. That's fine. Inevitably, and I've not found it to be not true, inevitably, everybody I've worked with that decided to keep the native foliage always have regretted keeping the original foliage. It's just only a matter of when. Is it tomorrow, 5 years later, 2 years later? It always happens that way because they see that cycle and they're like, nobody told us to just not to break out of that cycle. They just kept perpetuating the cycle. For whatever reason, another professional doesn't understand this cycle. Another professional doesn't know how to graft, so they don't want you to do that. Maybe another professional wants to wire your tree every 3 years for you and charge you money, right? If whatever the reason is. Inevitably, you'll find you won't get what you really want, and you just don't want to be 15 years, 10 years in, and looking back and just say, I should have just grafted this thing. It's kind of heartbreaking in a way. And I know there's going to be people who disagree with me. That's okay. That's fine. I get it. But the people who are looking for really high quality junipers, whatever they consider is high quality, inevitably they all find out that the native foliage is just not going to work for what they're after, and that you have to change the foliage into just a more usable foliage for bonsai. That's what it is. Again, if you like California Sierras because of the characteristics of the foliage, go for it. You're not going to get it as dense as like a Kishu or a Toigawa, but that's maybe not what you want. You like it natural, that's perfectly fine. But you got to know what you're getting into. And you got to be really sure that's what you want. Wiring the tree over and over, never having a tree that really looks that old as a bonsai, but you like the foliage and you want to keep it native. I mean, I respect that. I mean, that's a lot of work you've just committed yourself to, right? So, unfortunately, I'm a little bit lazy, right? In that sense, it's like, I don't want to wire a tree all the time. I want to be able to do directional pruning and have my tree looking good when I get to that stage. And I want to say, I put in all that hard work. This tree's looking good. I am finished, which is a concept that a lot of people don't understand, because everybody always jokes around, well, bonsai's never finished, right? It's because they never really finished one. So people keep talking about, well, bonsai's never finished. You say, no, they're finished. They get finished, okay? And then it's just maintaining that form, okay? Now you might say, okay, well, it's not finished in that sense, but you got the shape that you wanted. You put it in the show. This is what I was trying to build, and I built it. And now I'm trying to keep it looking this way. That's finish, okay? And a lot of people haven't gotten to that stage. So the concept of finished trees is a little foreign in that sense.
Yeah.
Because they're still chasing.
So to recap, essentially you're saying with our native junipers, the cycle of being finished or showable is just a lot shorter of a window compared to Kishu or Itogawa.
Yeah. You start seeing this cycle of peak kind of, okay, it's looking good, and then it's down for several years until you can finally replace the branches, finally get it to back bud, and then you might be moving up. It's never quite to what you originally have, though. Maybe there's some cases where you did. There's probably people out there listening saying, well, I did get it back. I'm not even sure that's the case. Let's just be honest about it and realistic about it. It rarely happens you get that same tree back. It doesn't look the same. Hopefully it just looks better. That would be great. So it goes up and it starts going, maybe it's a different form, but it's looking good. And then it goes into that down cycle because it got leggy again. Now, it goes up and down, but the bigger picture is that inevitably, if you're going to go in this up and down all the time, your tree peaks out at those ups. Whereas a tree that has smaller foliage, like say if you put a Toigawa or Kishu on there, the peak keeps going up and up and up. So it's not always this flat horizontal up and down. You're going up all the time. The tree is actually getting better every time you work on it. You're not just trying to recover what you had.
Yeah.
And try to rebuild what you have.
There's still a peak and a slower ascent with Kishu and Itogawa, right?
It's just significantly wider. Yeah. So say in a 5-year period, you have a peak, and then after 5 years, you go down on the Sierra, let's say. That peak in 5 years on a Kishu, it could be 10, 15, 20 years. And then at some point, will the tree get too wide? Absolutely. Every tree at some point will get too wide. Okay. If you built the structure well, at year 20, you can cut some of the branches out, get the tree smaller because you have so many branches to choose from, that now you only lost like 5 years, and now you can maintain for another 20 years. Okay. That's 40 years. I think we're all happy if we can get our trees to look good for 40 years after we're finished, right? And so, I'll tell you, like I said, I'm lazy. I don't want to have to restyle my tree all the time. And the one Western juniper that I had that I put in the Pacific Bonsai Expo, the first one, it was kind of peak for Western, and now it's a little too leggy. Plus, it always wants to produce pollen, which is driving me crazy too. So I've decided to graft it. And it's been 10 years since I got that tree, because I got the tree when I came back from Japan in 13. So it's been 12 years. And just like a lot of people out there, I was like, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to see if I can make the Western work. And I did. I made it work for, let's see, in 22 is when I showed it. And it was slightly actually after the peak when I showed it. The year before is when it peaked. Okay, because everything got a little bit kind of droopy. And I had to wire to hold things up. So I got the tree in 2013. So 7, 8, 9. So I was able to get that tree to stay how I want, or build the tree. It took me 7 years or 5 years or something to build it. It peaked for about 5 years because the Western juniper is tighter and smaller. Oh, surprise, surprise. It was smaller. That's why it worked, right? And I was still only able to keep it to the shape for a handful of years. And now I'm grafting it. Okay.
You are grafting it?
Well, I'm going to, yeah. Because it's now a little bit too leggy. Everything's too droopy. I have to cut it way back to rebuild it if I wanted to keep the same shape. And I spent a bunch of time developing it to what it is already right now. I was like, I don't want to do that again. I want to spend another 7 years to get it back to its original shape, to then live with it for another 5, and then spend another 7 years to build it. I did it once already, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to do it so many times. And I don't have a lot of times to just waste on things like that. So if I graft it, it takes some initial time to graft it and do all that, but it allows me to, when I do spend, say, 7, 8 years developing it with Kishu or Toiga, I haven't decided which one, I can hopefully then maintain it for the next 20, 30 years without having to even think about, well, it's a little too wide now, I have to restart it.
Yeah. Do you like Kishu or Itogawa better?
That's a good question in the sense like in Japan, for example, Itogawa is the preferred foliage. They like it because it's softer feeling. The characteristics of the junipers that they have there tend to be softer, flowier, a lot of movement. They feel that Itogawa has that softness to kind of go with it, which is Kishu is darker green, it's a little heavier, it's real clumpy, almost like it's so dense that it almost looks like it's going to explode. It's like, it doesn't feel like there's like a nice spacing in between. Now you can put that into it, but if you allow it to grow normally, it just looks like it's about to burst, right? So it's just heavy looking. And so for the junipers where there's a lot of flow, they don't like that. I would say that in the U.S., I don't think anybody really cares about that yet. We're just happy that we have a tree that has like a nice looking pad right now. Okay, we're happy that we can make that, right? And there's some density in it. So I would say I don't think, personally, I'm kind of back and forth. Generally, I use both. Generally, I would say that if I have a juniper that's on the powerful side, I would say I would go for more Kishu. And trees that are a little flowier or lighter feeling, if it was a bunjin or something, I would probably tend to go with the Itoigawa. Usually when I talk to my clients, I'll tell them the pros and cons of one over the other is that Kishu can handle more sun. They're easier to grow in the sense that they're not sensitive to over pruning as much as Itoigawa. They can handle more sun. Other than spider mites really likes Kishu, that's the downside of it. Most of the time Kishus tend to be easier, and so a lot of my clients will just automatically say, well, let's do Kishu. I'm not trying to get a foliage that's more finicky like Itoigawa. Mm-hmm. Regardless if it's right or not for that tree. They just want the easier.
Yeah. I noticed you have quite a few different types of Itogawa, or at least from different origins. You have them all labeled.
Yeah.
Have you found much variation in the different foliages?
Yeah. I mean, how I got my mother trees, right, that I take grafts off of. Kind of throughout the years, I'll get random junipers. And I'll look at different junipers, and I notice that some Kishus are just a little greener than others, or this one seems to be denser, and this one's a little leggier. And that's the same with Itoigawa. Is there one that's a little just thinner looking, and that may, or denser but thinner looking, and that's a characteristic. There's a tree that one of my clients has, and I won't put any names out, but professional he used to work with, teacher, liked to use this Itoigawa foliage on junipers because the characteristics of this Itoigawa is that when they grew and they thickened, and let's say the branch is like a pencil size, okay, is that for some reason this Itoigawa was much more flexible when it was pencil size than other Itoigawas. So they're easier to bend. And that's when it's still dense and all that stuff. And that's why that was his teacher's like preferred Itoigawa. Okay. And now I have some of it that I'm going to propagate. I don't know how true that is.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say the guy's a liar or anything. The guy is a well-known Japanese professional, so I'm sure he knows his stuff. So I'd like to take some cuttings and see how it's true. See how true that is, because one of the interesting things about Itoigawa is that if you graft it on your tree and it grows really strong, it can get very stiff very fast. It's still bendable, but it seems like it's not bendable.
Yeah.
It can be very strong. Whereas I don't see as much of that with Kishu, actually, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But if it grows very strong, it can be very stiff. And so this other one being less stiff, maybe there's some advantages to that. It doesn't break as easily, right?
Yeah. I got to think that everyone's environment and weather is going to play a factor in which one is better.
Yeah. Like, it's humid in Japan, and I take cuttings of it, and it grows nothing like how it grew in Japan.
Yeah.
And it's a bust, right? Yeah, for sure. So there's some experimentation, but it sounds kind of cool, right? And you say, oh, yeah, it's from this profession's teacher. Secret stash.
No, that is cool. Everyone wants a secret stash.
So I'll grow. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, shoot, I want some of that.
At least it's a good story, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was kind of surprised because I've heard how finicky Itoigawa was. And then for me, I've always, ever since I got the C type from you, it seems to grow much better than Kishu for me. Like it just,
If you're in an environment that Itoigawa grows well in, like if Itoigawa here, now they don't really like a lot of heat, so I have to put them under shade. For me, I do get hot weather, but it's not as rough as some other areas. I know some areas where it's hot all the time. It's hot early in the year. It's hot throughout the whole year. It's windy and dry. And all you have to do is, all you have to do is barely work on the tree and it goes juvenile immediately. You go in and you just clean it out a little bit on the inside, it goes juvenile. It just does not like to be touched, right? Now, that's an extreme case. But I have found that, Itoigawa, if it's healthy and grows well for you, it'll grow way faster than Kishu. Like significantly fast, like almost twice as fast. Yeah, like they spike out a lot more than Kishu.
That's what I get at my house.
And you have the environment, which is cooler, more humid. You can grow very dense junipers, or junipers seem to grow well in cooler, humid environments. Like clients in San Francisco, where in the summertime it's humid and it's cold. Junipers grow so dense there. Like I can't even get it that dense here, no matter what I do. And that's purely an environmental thing. Now, they get it really dense, but I can grow a trident maple branch 6 feet in one spring. And for them, it grows like 6 inches because they don't have the heat. Yeah. So, for different trees, it just grows at different, they like different environments. But yeah, I wish I can grow junipers that dense. That'd be amazing, right? Because then you can really, if you spend the time to develop a Kishu to the shape you want, and you're in an environment where it naturally grows denser than normal, then you're for sure guarantee you can keep the tree looking good for an even longer time, longer than I can ever do it in my environment, because you live in San Francisco or where you live in the Central Coast. And it's like, well, what do you got to lose there? That's an even better deal. Yeah. Right?
Do you get excited about the possibility of finding maybe dwarf or really good varieties of our native junipers? Or do you think they're out there?
I bet they're out there. Witch's brooms and things like that. I mean, that happens with other trees. Can we find a witch's broom Sierra juniper? I mean, we've not seen any so far. So I got to believe there's got to be something somewhere. It just hasn't been found, right? Would I then use that? Yeah, I mean, if it has some characteristics such as, it's tighter. Will it ever be as tight as Kishu? Maybe not. Or is it Toigawa? But maybe it's tight enough like the Western that I have. And now it's maybe worthwhile to try. Yeah. I know that sometimes, people have grafted like Californias or Sierras on themselves to try, to get it back. I don't know how successful.
Yeah, I've never seen that, and it seems like it would be obvious, and people would be doing it. But like,
I don't know anybody do grafting Sierra on itself.
Yeah, I also was surprised it was very hard. I tried to take Sierra cuttings, which is useless. I don't know why you'd, other than to graft maybe roots.
Oh yeah.
Or if you wanted to go with the foliage or whatever, but it was very hard to take them from cuttings, which was surprising.
Oh, interesting. I've not tried taking them as cuttings. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because usually doing like Kishu or Toigawa, they take like no problem.
Yeah, they do.
But yeah, I mean, maybe they just don't like being taken as cuttings. So I never tried it.
I'm not sure. I don't even know. Can you easily take Rocky Mountain from cutting? I haven't really
I've not tried that.
It. Although in the nursery trade, I know that they do have some varieties of Rocky Mountain juniper, like the specialty conifer. They have like some blue Rocky Mountain, but I don't know. They have special setups for propagation as well. So
maybe
that's what it requires.
Greenhouse, certain chemicals,
fogging and the leaves and all that stuff. Yeah.
Now I know California's you can take as cuttings. I know a lot of people have had success taking giant cuttings.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
California?
like giant. If you have a humid house and you can take a giant cut, I mean, literally 4 or 5 inches wide.
Yeah.
Just a large, chop it off, stick in pumice, and they root.
Interesting.
But and you can air layer it too.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't even have to do anything. You just put it in soil around the trunk and roots just grow out of it. Whereas Sierras don't seem to do that. Rockies don't seem to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, even within a juniper, there's like weird things that happen.
Yeah. Totally. Awesome. Well, I guess maybe last question. If that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so I know that somewhat recently, you made a trip to Randy Knight's with Max.
Yeah.
And you went up and visited him. And I guess I was just curious, putting foliage aside, talking about trunk quality in particular, I think you made a comment to me, something along the lines of, like after going up to Randy's place and seeing some more Rocky Mountains, you might rank them higher than California from a trunk quality perspective.
Yeah. And I felt kind of foolish. Yeah, I went up there last year to visit him for the first time to look at some of the Rocky Mountains that he's collected. And once I saw the trees, I felt kind of foolish that it took me that long to get up there. That was totally my fault in not doing that sooner, right? Because I knew he was collecting trees for a while, and I just never got a chance to go up there. And once I saw some of the stuff that he collected, and I have to give him credit. I mean, I'm sure they're not those really nice trees that he's collecting. It's not just on the side of the road. I'm sure he's looking for them too, right? It's not like they're just everywhere either. But it's you start thinking that because all of them are like awesome, right? And you're like, they just must be everywhere, right? So, but I would say, once I really saw some of the interesting ones that he's collected, it did really change my opinion. That not that I had much of an opinion before, but I would say I would agree that I think Rocky Mountain juniper is probably the most superior juniper material we have in this country. The deadwood is so much harder, so much older. The movement in the trunks are more movement I've ever seen on a California and Sierras. I mean, generally, if somebody collects a California or a Sierra and has a twist in it, even they know, they're like, this is not normal. This is very rare. You might see more twists in California, which is kind of rare. Like a Sierra almost never twists, right? So, but say they're about the same in the sense that you're just not going to find one that's twisted. And the fact that we see so many that are twisted that are Rocky Mountains, their conditions just much be harsher, that forces them to twist like that. But yeah. I mean, the wood is just denser. You can feel it in the weight of the wood. It's denser. The dead wood is harder. The grain lines, because the tree is older, you get more texture in the deadwood, much more than you would ever see in a California or Sierra. I mean, you can, after you touch that deadwood on a Rocky Mountain juniper, all other deadwood, as hard as they might feel soft. Yeah, and feels like there's a lot of soft tissue in it. In a Rocky Mountain, you kind of touch the deadwood and you're like, I seriously hurt myself on this wood. Like it's not messing around. Yeah. Yeah. And so I currently I do believe that Rocky Mountain junipers are definitely the superior trunks to go for. They're harder to graft. I mean, I'm doing some of that now, but they're definitely harder to graft. I don't know the reason why, but they're a little trickier. Not that it's impossible. It's doable, but it's not as easy as like on Californias and Sierras. They're much easier to graft. So Rocky Mountains are a little bit more challenging, but the material is so good, it's worth it.
Yeah.
Right.
Seems like the amount of water that I say a Sierra is moving, the amount of fluid, it's just so vascular.
Yeah.
And so like a Sierra juniper will just explode with this like water shoot, I almost call them.
It's interesting. I've seen that in Rocky Mountains also. Okay. Now, not say that explosive growth and everything fattens up, but I've seen lifelines where you would cut it. I mean, I've seen both. Where you cut into the lifeline, you can see the live tissue portion, the part that you can graft onto is super thin on a Rocky Mountain. But I've also grafted on some lines that were so vigorous that they look thick like a Sierra. You can't miss.
Yeah.
Like that cambium layer is like super thick. I've seen that too. So they're not all just super thin. I've seen some where it's just like super plump also.
And when you're talking about that, do you mean like the entire tree is super plump or just like one random branch?
No, I'm talking about like the lifeline. If I'm grafting on the lifeline, it's like just as plump as like a Sierra or California.
Okay.
Yeah,
but not
like
all of them.
Super juicy. Not all of them. Sometimes they're very thin. Some branches that I graft onto like smaller branches, they'll be very thin, but I've grafted into branches that are real plump also.
Yeah.
So I think the name of the game for that, at least preliminary, is that definitely you want the tree to be really strong. And if it's pumping, it seems like it's much easier to graft on than if it was kind of wimpy. But, that's the case for every tree, right? I think maybe in Rocky Mountains, the lifeline can be so thin when it's wimpy that it's almost impossible to match. And, of course, it's not going to take. Whereas you get a nice, happy branch and you got a lot of meat to it, the grafting is a little bit easier. Yeah. No.
Awesome.
But, yeah, right. I mean, if anybody out there gets a chance to go see Randy and I and see some of those trees, I mean, you won't regret it. And it's funny because when I saw those things, I was like, why am I wasting time with Californias or Sierras? I mean, it was like that. Not to say there isn't good California. I'm not trying to offend anybody, right? But you might as well just jump ahead of the line. If you want that old, it's just like we were talking about the foliage, right? It's, for what you're trying to build, if you're looking for a trunk that's really old, it's got great deadwood and all that stuff, why mess around with a juniper that doesn't have those features when say, a lot of these Rocky Mountains have it? Just jump ahead, just go to the Rocky Mountains, right? Why mess with California and Sierra knowing that there's a superior trunk out there that's at least within reach that you can go to and get? Okay. Price? Similar. It's not like Californias are cheaper than Rocky Mountains. So why not do that? I'm sure there's great Californias and Sierras out there. I know there are. But from what I've seen so far with the Rocky Mountains, it's just like you might as well just go to the source at that point. It's just, the level is just so much higher. And that's why I feel foolish that I didn't see that sooner. So yeah, hopefully I can visit them again soon and pick up a few more. That'd be great. And I would love that. Hate the foliage. I'm sorry. The foliage, maybe out of all the trees, that's the worst foliage of it all. But the trunks are so good. It'd be nice if we just had a juniper that had it all, like great trunk and great foliage. Now, the great trunks have the crappiest foliage, and the decent foliage like Sierra or California, which we might be able to work with, the trunk is not as good as the Rocky Mountains. It's like, okay, well, we just got to work with what we have then. Go from there.
For sure. Well, you sold me on a couple things for sure. I definitely want a Randy Knight tree, and I've been grafting most of my junipers.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Yes.
Great. You won't regret it. And I know you just got to kind of, for anybody, they have to just kind of trust me when I say that, right? But it is true. I mean, I have no benefit to doing the other way, right? Why would I?
Yeah.
No,
why would
I lie to you, right? It's just...
I've gone
That's just
through
what I've learned
with the Sierra junipers that we've worked on together. I've seen the ups and downs and the time period where you don't you don't have a showable tree, and you have to rebuild, do all this work, do lots of wiring. I feel like I'm always wiring my Sierras, and there's always wire on them. I do love Sierra juniper foliage, so I want to keep one of them all Sierra, but the rest of them I'm going to graft.
Just graft.
Or I have been grafting.
Yeah. One last note about those Sierras where you're talking about them exploding and blowing out branches. Yeah, once you graft it with like Kishu or Torigao, they don't do that anymore.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Maybe a little bit like on your small Sierra with the Kishu on it, the trunk got bigger, but it's not like the Kishu branches don't kind of follow suit and grow these fat branches like Sierras do. Yeah.
And a lot of that happened when it was still with Sierra foliage.
Oh, is that what it? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing. Interesting thing about Sierras is that once they get healthy and in bonsai kind of care, they plump up so fast.
Yes.
I mean, you'll get a branch that's only a foot long and it's like the size of my thumb, right? And they just have these crazy growths on them that's hard to control, actually.
Oh, yeah, it really is.
Yeah, because you're fighting that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you do about it?
Yeah, it's not, sometimes, I mean, it's hard to use that growth sometimes.
Yeah, because it's so thick or you can't bend it anymore. All you can do is kind of cut it off, but then another one grows. You can try to slow the tree down, but the downside of slowing the tree is so costly because foliage starts to hang and they don't grow right.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't work either.
Yep. Yeah. Cool. Well, I really, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think it's really important that I wanted everyone to hear your thoughts on grafting junipers. Absolutely fascinating, and you have so much experience with it. Is there anything else you'd like to chat about or mention before we head out?
I mean, we're talking about bonsai. I guess we could talk about all sorts of stuff, right? So, I mean, it can lead for hours and hours of them. But I think we had a good solid talk about junipers, especially the grafting stuff. I think it takes a little bit of time to digest, and please, don't take it like you're some kind of failed bonsai enthusiast because you decided not to graft. This is just real talk about kind of what to expect if you're using this kind of foliage. Just like any tree that you would expect to happen if the foliage is just too big for that trunk. Hopefully this helps people just understand and think about, okay, what is it that they're trying to develop or what kind of juniper they're trying to develop, and is grafting what I need to do to get to where I want. Hopefully that's really the big message is. And so you don't accidentally pursue a route that inevitably will never give you what you want if you're looking, in the dense or keeping a tree the same shape for long periods of time, proportion, all that good stuff. And so because, bonsai takes a long time to develop, and any kind of savings in time is always valuable because our bonsai live longer than we do. And so we only have so much time in our lives to make them better, and hopefully they are going in the direction that we want. And so that's the big message in the grafting portion. And so hopefully that helps some people.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Peter. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremiah.
So much from you.
Thank you for doing this.
Through the years. I can't thank you enough.
You're very welcome. Thank you.